This video is kindly sponsored by Incogni. If you love landscape or outdoor photography, you've probably come across plenty of composition rules designed to help you create more compelling images. But as you may have discovered, following the rules too closely can sometimes lead to predictable, uninspired shots that lack originality. In this video, I want to challenge one of the biggest compositional rules out there and share 5 reasons why you might want to break it entirely. Now, I was hoping to get out and shoot today, but as you can see, it's absolutely chucking it down. And it's been pretty much like that for the last 5 days straight, which I have to say from a photographic standpoint has been a little bit on the frustrating side. However, I have managed to get a little bit done on my camper van conversion, so I guess every cloud and all of that. Anyway, the composition rule I'm referring to today is often called clean edges or edge awareness, and it suggests that you should carefully check the edges of your frame and remove any distracting elements that might pull attention away from your main subject. And this technique helps create a more focused and visually pleasing image by avoiding unwanted clutter, awkward cut-offs, or elements that unintentionally lead the viewer's eye out of the frame. Now, before we dive into the 5 reasons you might want to ignore this technique altogether, let's first take a look at why it's, so widely used by a lot of photographers, including myself. In fact, I've written about it in my composition ebook, and it's a technique I use regularly. But the point I want to make here is that, if we rely too heavily on composition rules, our images can start to feel, a little bit predictable, and they may lack a sense of creativity, So I think one of the biggest reasons is that it helps to prevent, unintentional distractions. So when bright spots, stray branches, or half-cut objects creep into the edges of the frame, they can pull the attention away from the main subject, making the image, feel cluttered or less focused. Another reason is that it helps to keep the viewer's focus inside the frame. A clean edge creates more intentional compositions, helping to guide the eye towards the subject rather than letting it wander off to the distractions at the borders of the image. I think it also enhances balance within the image. If edges of a photo are too messy or cluttered, the composition can start to feel unbalanced or chaotic. So by keeping them clean, you create a more harmonious and visually pleasing shot. Now, if you do want to follow this technique and keep your edges of your frame clean, there are a few simple ways that you can do it while shooting and also editing your photos. First, check your frame before clicking. Now, I know this sounds obvious, but it really is something that's just easy to forget. I'm constantly trying to remind myself to check the edges, but ultimately I think when we're caught up in the moment, it's super easy just to forget. So before pressing the shutter button, if possible, I'd try to just take a quick moment to scan the very edges of the viewfinder or the screen. A quick adjustment can make all of the difference. Another simple fix is to recompose or change your position. Sometimes just shifting slightly to the left, right, stepping backwards or forwards can adjust the camera angle and remove unwanted distractions without compromising your main subject. If you're unsure, a good approach is to shoot slightly wider and then crop later. This gives you a bit of flexibility in post-processing, allowing you to fine-tune your composition without having to worry too much about cutting off important elements in the moment. So there are definitely solid reasons why this rule exists, but like with many composition techniques, following it too strictly can sometimes take away from the uniqueness and creativity of a photo. And that's exactly where we're going to explore next, because I've come up with 5 reasons why you might want to consider ignoring this technique altogether. Speaking of removing distractions, I've also been dealing with an entirely different kind of clutter recently, and that's digital clutter. Now, at the start of the year, my inbox was getting flooded with junk mails, spam calls were just coming through constantly to my phone, and it just got to a point where I was missing all of the important emails because they were getting buried under all of this junk. And to make things worse, I even had my credit card cloned, which was a complete nightmare. maybe many of you will have had something similar. Let me know in the comments if you've noticed an increase in, spam calls or emails lately, because yeah, it just got to a point where it was ridiculous for me. So I'd already started looking at ways to clean this up when Incogni reached out about sponsoring this week's video. And honestly, what they offer really helped me. So if you've ever wondered how spammers get your info, well, the answer is they buy it. Crazy, isn't it? Now, there's a whole industry where data brokers collect, sell your name, age, address, phone number, email, shopping habits, and even your browsing history. And unbelievably, it's completely legal. The good news is, though, you have the right to get your information removed. The bad news? There are hundreds of these lists, and removing them yourself manually is nearly impossible. And that's where Incogni comes in, because they do the hard work for you, finding the lists that you're on and demanding that your data is to be removed. If brokers resist, Incogni keeps fighting until your info is gone. Since signing up, my phone has stopped ringing with spam calls, my inbox is much cleaner, and I can even track the progress through their dashboard. Incogni is risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to take back your privacy, use the link in my video description, which is incogni.com/Ian Worth, for a 60% off an annual plan. So a big thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this week's video. So as mentioned, while clean edges can improve a composition, there are times when placing an element at the edge of the frame can enhance a shot. So I've come up with 5 really good examples here, and I'm sure there are many more as well. So please feel free to add a comment below if you have a technique that you regularly use that might help others as well. So first up, when we intentionally place something right at the edge of the frame or even cut part of it off, we suggest that there's more beyond what's actually captured in that photo. So it hints at a larger scene, inviting the viewer to imagine what exists outside of the frame as well. So take this shot, for example. It's clearly of a lone tree, and the clean edges reinforce that idea. But in this second shot, even though it's still a single tree, the branches creeping into the frame from all sides create that feeling that there are more trees beyond the image. That helps set the scene and gives a sense of a wider environment. Here's another example. In this shot, I positioned the boulders so that they're half in and half out of the frame. This tricks our brains into thinking there are more boulders beyond what we can actually see. Maybe they stretch all the way down the beach. Now in this second version, I've cloned out some of the boulders at the edge, and as a result, it now feels much more like a smaller collection. That simple change can alter the way we perceive a scene. So by intentionally placing elements half in and half out of the frame, we create that impression that there's more beyond what's visible. And I think this invites the viewer to fill in the gaps with their imagination, adding a sense of intrigue to the image. Next up, let's talk about visual weight. Now, typically when I'm composing a shot, I try to create a sense of balance and harmony by positioning my main subject alongside supporting elements. And the way these are placed really affect the overall feel of an image. Take this shot for example. I've given the sea stack plenty of space to breathe, and the open expanse of sky helps create a sense of calm. My main aim here was to make the shot more about the moment rather than just the subject itself. But if I had placed the sea stack right at the edge of the frame, it would have carried much more visual weight, shifting the focus more onto the rock itself rather than the overall mood of the image. When something feels slightly off balance or uncomfortable in an image, the eye is naturally drawn to it, and we can actually use this as a compositional tool to emphasize a certain point. Take this black and white shot for example. I wanted to highlight the fact that these old sea defences were falling apart and unsafe, so I deliberately placed the piece of wood awkwardly in the top corner. This helps to emphasise the erosion of the post below, making the damage more noticeable. The placement might feel unusual, but that's exactly the point. It draws the eye and hopefully helps to tell the story. Whether or not this works, of course, is all subjective, but hopefully you see what I mean. Actually, these sea defences have been removed now, so I'm really glad I did capture this shot when I did. One of the more creative ways to use edge elements is to add depth to an image. So rather than keeping the edges completely clean, allowing an object like a branch, a rock, or even a shadow to enter the frame can help create a stronger sense of dimension. For example, placing a rock or some foreground shadow at the edge of your frame can create a natural framing effect, subtly leading the viewer's eye into the scene. And this can help create a greater sense of space and scale. This shot is of the same sea stack that I showed before, but from a different angle. Now, whether this composition works or not, I'm still not completely sure, but it was definitely great fun to experiment with a different angle, especially at a well-photographed location. One effective way to guide a viewer through an image is by using leading lines, especially when they extend beyond the edges of the frame. So for example, a winding path, a river, or even a fence line that disappears off of the edge of the frame can create a sense of continuation, encouraging the viewer to mentally follow where it leads. Now, this not only adds a natural flow to the image, but also helps to maintain engagement as the eye instinctively wants to explore beyond what's immediately visible. In both of these shots, I've placed lead-in lines that start outside of the frame, which I hope will help guide the viewer to the main focal point. So this one is probably the most important one, to be honest. Now, as we see more and more AI generated images across social media and the web, I find myself increasingly drawn to photos that feel, well, less polished, ones that embrace imperfections and reflect reality. And that's why actually I've started to embrace the idea of leaving certain distractions in the frame. Instead, of removing every stray branch or twig, sometimes I think keeping them in reinforces the authenticity of the moment. It shows the image was captured rather than generated or heavily altered. In the past, I might have cleaned up unwanted distractions at the edges of my photos, but lately, I found myself sort of leaning more towards leaving them in. I think it just adds, another layer of realism to the image. And of course, one of the biggest reasons to leave something at the edges of your frame, whether it's placed awkwardly or not, is simply because you want to have it there. Your creative decisions are what make your photography personal to you. I think the points I've discussed in this video, they're not rules, but rather techniques that can help guide the viewer's eye or strengthen a narrative in the image. At the end of the day though, it's your vision that matters the most. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you might like the one that's up here. And if you'd like to learn more about photography composition, why not check out my composition ebook, which is linked at the top there and also down in the video description. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I do hope to see you all again next week.